fell 5 feet.
Who did?
The kidnapper with the child in his arms.
That's speculation, Mr. Hoover.
Where's the ransom note?
Of course.
You are touching that with your bare hands as well.
We checked. They're none of those finger imprints that you fancy so valuable, Mr. Hoover.
Please hand it over, Mr. Schwarzkopf.
That's Colonel Schwarzkopf.
I want this letter and the ladder.
There's no federal jurisdiction here. I've showed you what you asked for. It's time for you to go.
Mr. Lindbergh, please, if I
Mr.
may have
Hoover,
a moment of
thank
your
you very much. As you can see, we have everything under control. Thank you, gentlemen.
Thank you for your time, Mr. Lindbergh.
Well, I'm Jonathan W. Hickman, and this is Jeff Marker, and you're watching The Film Fix. And we're standing in the cold at Atlantic Station, and I had intended to introduce you guys, even though you don't need any introduction, to my new Kindle Fire device.
New toys.
And I had side-loaded several clips from several of the movies that we're going to talk about today. J. Edgar, the Clint Eastwood film, which is about the FBI. It's about the formation.
The building of the FBI.
Yeah,
you know, it's barely about that. Actually.
It's about Mr. Hoover.
Yeah.
And we're also going to talk about The Descendants. And that's the Alexander Payne-directed film starring a very understated George Clooney and his daughter.
Played by Shailene Woodley.
That is
played quite well.
Absolutely a surprising turn.
Yeah.
I really like that part of that movie. So stay tuned. You're watching The Film Fix.
Well, as you said, this is the latest Clint Eastwood movie, J. Edgar, and it's called J. Edgar because what the movie really tries to do is give us a profile of sort of the man behind the myth of J. Edgar Hoover. And so it's somewhat about building the FBI, but it's really more about what forces sort of shaped this guy as we sort of thought we know him. And so it focuses on his arrest record. It focuses on the Lindbergh case very heavily, the period when the FBI was hunting anarchists and communists, and then it focuses on hunting these crime figures. But that's only about a third of the movie, I would say. The bulk of the movie really is about Hoover's relationships with his mother and with his assistant director to the FBI, Clyde Tolson. Yeah, played by Armie Hammer, played quite well. Who you remember as the Winklevi.
He was one of the he was one of the twins, right?
Yeah, that's right. Well, and to be fair to Hammer, he's probably, I think he's the best part of the movie. The acting is all fine, they play their roles fine, but I had huge problems with the script, and well, we'll get into that in a second. But on a filmmaking level, I think this has a number of problems. The palette is very monotone.
Yeah, it's all
the
muted
makeup is really bad,
ugly
at times. Do you agree
well,
with that?
I
don't.
No, it was a distraction, true. And it's the movie has this very odd structure. It starts the first time we see Jedgar, I think, is when he's on a bicycle and he goes to the scene of where a government official has been firebombed. I believe that's the first time we see a younger. Leo playing J. Edgar, and he's sort of a humble, childlike character, even though he's already a grown man. And then the narrative kind of skews off, and it really spends a lot of time with a heavily made up version of Leo as J. Edgar, and you know,
at a very late age.
Well, see, I say late age. They look like they're 90, and the makeup is so overdone.
Yeah.
I would say that now it is very good makeup. It's seamless. It doesn't, to me, look like, and I know you had an issue. It doesn't, to me, look like something that you'd see on Saturday Night Live or anything. This is clearly good work, but the problem I think we all have with this is Leonardo DiCaprio. He is so well known, and we know how he looks, that it just seems odd to see him so aged, and we know that it's not real.
Well, and his casting was kind of strange to me from the outset because...
I agree.
I mean, look, most of you probably have seen photos of J. Edgar Hoover, and
He was
I doubt,
a short man.
Yeah, he not only was he short, I don't think anybody would accuse him of being good looking, you know. And so
He had his moments with some starlets. If you read his history, I
Sure,
mean, there
well,
was at times some speculation that he was going to marry some actress. I mean, it's the holes in the narrative are just gaping. They focus a lot on the Clyde Tolson and J. Edgar relationship. It's a movie about, and this is interesting because Tinker Tailor Soldier Spy, which we're going to review in a few weeks, I would think, that I have seen, is another movie that is about secrecy. It's about spying, and of course this is domestic spying with the FBI. It is about the old ways of doing business and keeping secrets, and the two movies couldn't be more diametrically opposed in how they handle that. In this case, you have Clyde Tolson and you have J. Edgar, and are they lovers? I mean, that's the central thing. Are they lovers? Were they lovers? Were they both? They both, I guess, died without wives. They died, lonely men. That is certainly a touching thing. But I mean, I thought one scene where Leonardo DiCaprio dons his mother's dress in pearls was laughable. I thought it didn't work. Now, I've heard people say they were touched by that, but there is Leonardo DiCaprio in a dress in this movie. It's poorly shot. You don't really know what's going on. I think they were afraid to let us into that room enough, and I also thought it didn't work.
Well, and it's very much, when I reviewed this for print, I compared J. Edgar's relationship with his mother to Norman Bates's relationship to his mother, and it is very much like that.
Well, his mother's
She's
played
very
by Dame Judi Dench, too.
And played well, but
Sure.
it's such a one-note character. I mean, at one point, she tells her son that she'd rather have, she tells J. Edgar she would rather have a dead son than a gay son. This has a profound effect on anyone, for sure, okay? And so that, I get it, there's a sort of emotional resonance there. I actually thought the story with Tolson was the strongest part of the movie.
Of course, yeah.
I thought that was the best.
That's because of Armie Hammer's performance. He really looks upon Leo with such love and adoration.
Yeah.
It's a very touchy. There are some touching moments between the two men, but it's buried in this convoluted, disjointed narrative. As I said, it just skips around. It starts with it has the older guy telling the story to various stenographers. Did you notice that? That was odd too.
And he's
Made no sense.
Hoover has a lot of little tics, and so he brings these people in to actually, take dictation for this book that he's working on. And if they make one mistake or say one thing wrong, he fires them, and then we have another stenographer. And the structure was rather confusing, and I couldn't always piece together, okay, what did that flashback have to do with the scene in the present that follows it?
Absolutely.
And that was problematic. But
It's
my
disjointed.
biggest problems with it were the sins of omission when it comes to the writing. I mean, this is a really gentle treatment of J. Edgar Hoover, who was anything but a gentle guy in his public life. And so
He wanted to be known as a monster, I think.
Well,
I mean,
this-
that was
this
his
man-
menacing routine, right?
yeah, well, this man was the center of the entire anti-communist crucible, and they skip over that. And so I just couldn't get past that. I think he's a bad subject for a movie to begin with, and the movie didn't change my opinion.
I'll say this. J. Edgar, in one word, is dreck. That's what I thought. It just didn't work on any level, and I wanted to get out of in front of the screen I was watching it on. It did nothing for me, and
Yeah,
I hated that because I'm an admirer of Clint Eastwood's work. Only Clint Eastwood could have made a movie like this, I think. I don't know that anybody would have greenlit a J. Edgar story on this level if it wasn't for him behind the camera.
Well, and it's a waste of 3 fine performances too. DiCaprio, Hammer, and Naomi Watts both turn in fine performances, but they can't get beyond weak material to begin with.
Yeah, and it's interesting that we're going to see Tinker Tailor Soldier Spy in a few weeks, and we'll be able to, I think, draw some comparisons between the two. The next movie that we're going to take a look at is The Descendants. It's from director Alexander Payne, and it stars George Clooney, who earlier this year had a movie that he directed called The Ides of March. And luckily for Clooney, The Ides of March wasn't his only film of the year. So let's take a look at a clip from The Descendants.